Recently, some people have found that when swimming, their fingers can move through the water with bubbles trailing behind them. As long as the speed is fast enough, the bubbles will follow closely, only disappearing when the finger exits the water. Meanwhile, attentive netizens have also discovered that when the finger accelerates in the water, the bubble is pulled longer but doesn't detach. At the same time, the front of the bubble and the finger are not tightly attached, but maintain a slight distance. What's the reason for this? Also, it's heard that a javelin thrown utilizes the principle of the finger dragging bubbles, thus extending its flight distance. So, this episode, we'll explore this interesting bubble together. Come to the swimming pool. First, place your finger above the water surface. Then move quickly downwards and immerse it in the water. You'll find that the finger continuously pushes the water beneath it, accelerating it outwards. Due to the finger sinking, the speed of water displacement is very fast, causing the upper part to not close in time, forming a ventilated cavity. At this time, the lower part of the cavity is about to expand to its limit, while other parts are being pushed closed by water pressure. This makes the closing speed in the middle faster than that of the upper and lower sides, thus sealing the lower part of the cavity, forming a bubble. But why doesn't the bubble float upwards? Instead, it follows the finger's movement. Observe the water flow bypassing the finger. You'll find a large number of separation eddies. These eddies are close to the backflow surface of the finger, forming a low-pressure zone. This causes the water pressure around the bubble on the side closer to the finger to be lower than other parts. So the bubble expands towards the low-pressure direction, deforming as it follows the moving finger. Therefore, it's stretched. At this time, the finger changes from sinking to moving horizontally, continuing to rely on the separation eddy to maintain the low-pressure zone. This causes the air pressure at the front of the bubble to balance with the lower water pressure in the finger's separation eddy, while the air pressure at the rear of the bubble is balanced with the higher water pressure around it, therefore under the pull of the finger's eddies. A pressure difference pointing towards the finger is maintained inside the bubble. It continuously pushes the air inside the bubble to flow towards the low-pressure direction, making the bubble follow the finger when the finger changes its direction of movement. As long as the separation eddy is strong enough, it can induce the flow of air inside the bubble, making its direction follow. Therefore, with a little practice, you can create a bubble tail that won't detach. At the same time, we notice that, due to the increased pressure on the finger's facing surface and the decreased pressure on the backflow surface, the finger experiences drag force. And observe a javelin flying in the air. You'll find it similar to the finger moving in water. So, does the javelin also experience pressure difference? The answer is yes. When the javelin is thrown with a large angle of attack, the high pressure of the oncoming airflow and the low pressure of the eddies also create a pressure difference directed towards the rear. But when thrown with an appropriate angle of attack, the dynamic pressure of the airflow is significantly reduced compared to a large angle of attack, while the eddies on the leeward side, compared to a large angle of attack, are reduced less. This makes the direction of this pressure difference not only more towards the top, but also the proportion of the eddy suction force in the pressure difference increases. This makes the center of pressure of the javelin experience an aerodynamic force dominated by eddy suction force. In this way, the javelin can be supported by stronger eddy lift, and so extend its flight distance. At the same time, the javelin is also pushed by the aerodynamic force to rotate around its center of gravity. This makes the angle of attack continuously decrease, coordinating with the flight trajectory. Finally, it plunges into the ground with a near-zero angle of attack. Although this throwing process seems good, on July 20, 1984, German athlete Yu Han, in the men's javelin competition, threw a distance of 104.8 meters, breaking the then world record of 99.72 meters. Regarding this, the International Association of Athletics Federations believed that if this javelin had caught a strong tailwind, it could have flown a few more meters and possibly impaled the referee on the sidelines. The reason for the excessive flight distance was that the distance between the center of pressure and the center of gravity was too close, causing the javelin to return to a zero angle of attack too slowly after being thrown, making the javelin, after being thrown, return to a zero angle of attack too slowly. So the time for the eddy lift to exert its force was longer, excessively increasing the flight distance. Since that happened, the International Association of Athletics Federations changed the rules, moving the center of gravity of the javelin 4 centimeters forward. Doing so, the javelin's longitudinal moment increased during flight compared to before. The return to zero angle of attack became faster. This caused the distance extending effect of the generated force during the throw to be significantly suppressed, so much so that even 40 years later, the Olympic champion could only throw a distance of 92.97 meters. It's clear that the inconspicuous eddy, whether it's pulling bubbles or lifting javelins, is an indispensable helper. Conversely, if the eddy's effect is slightly weakened, then 104.8 meters would become the only permanent world record in the history of athletics.